You might remember my next guest, Benita Alexander. She thought she found her Mr. Right, the handsome, successful thoracic surgeon, Dr. Paolo Macchiarini. He was widely recognized and praised for the groundbreaking work he was doing on patients from all over the world. But soon, questions swirled about his personal life, and serious inquiries into his professional experience and ethics also began to surface. Take a look. Benita Alexander was an award-winning investigative television producer when she was assigned a story involving a dashing Italian doctor. She met Paolo Macchiarini in February of 2013, less than a year later, after a whirlwind romance that included extravagant trips to the Caribbean and Europe. The world-renowned transplant surgeon proposed to Benita on Christmas Day. Paolo told her the Obamas and Clintons would be in attendance, and that the Pope himself would officiate their July 11th wedding. On May 13, 2015, Benita quit her job and took her daughter out of school. The next day, her world turned upside down when she learned that Pope Francis was set to be in South America on the day of their wedding. Benita confronted Paolo and the wedding was called off. After hiring a private investigator, she discovered that he had no ties to the Pope and that he was still married to his wife of nearly 30 years.
I found out that I'm not the only one he did this to. There were, in addition to the wife and me, there were at least 2 other families.
And Paolo wasn't just reportedly a con man in his personal life. Some details about his professional life were also fabricated. And there were questions about the risky trachea surgery he was performing, reportedly leaving several patients dead. In September of 2020, Paolo Macchiarini was indicted in Sweden on charges of aggravated assault, alleging 3 patients there died from his operations. Benita Alexander, the woman who thought she'd be spending the rest of her life with Dr. Macchiarini, is here with us. Now, we've talked about this personal betrayal in the past. I know you were shook by it. How have you moved on?
You know, it's been a journey. At the beginning, it was very difficult. I kind of wanted to hide under the bed and stay there. And yet I knew I couldn't do that. I couldn't do that for 2 reasons. This is a man who has people's lives in his hands, and I thought I might be the only person that could expose him. And also, if I got conned and I was an investigative journalist, I wanted other women to know that this can happen to anyone. And it's embarrassing. And I wanted to help other women realize that we should not be shamed into silence. It's okay to talk about this. And that's kind of what I'm doing now. And so I sort of turned it into a whole mission of helping other women.
I'm proud of you for doing that.
Thank you.
People are quick to criticize. What are you hearing now in terms of negativity? Are people blaming you for being conned, despite the fact that you're a professional, you're actually an investigative journalist, the ideal person to find this guy out?
Yeah, you know, that was a rude shock. Especially at the beginning, I thought, whoa, wait a minute, how am I the bad guy here? You know, this is a man who's dangerous, who's a fraud, who is a pathological liar, and yet I was getting all these hateful messages and people calling me stupid or people saying, oh, she's a gold digger and she's just missing the jet setter lifestyle. And that was really painful at the beginning. I've since learned to ignore that and steeled myself against it. And if that's what you take out of this story, that's unfortunate because that's not the purpose of me going public and that's not the purpose of the story. And so I'm definitely on the other side of it now. And by helping other women, I don't listen to any of that anymore.
You're a deep thinker. I've gotten to know you a little bit. It's an attribute that comes in handy in a case like this. At what point did you begin to think, this is not just about me being conned and this man taking advantage of a woman, which happens all over the world. This is about a person who might be conning the medical profession.
The very first clue I had was about 6 months before our wedding in November of 2014. And there was an article in the New York Times, and he was accused of scientific misconduct in Sweden at the place that gives the Nobel Prize in Medicine. That was the first time I had any inkling that anything was wrong. At the time, he defended it by saying, look, I'm a maverick, I'm a rebel, you know, pioneers at the forefront of medicine get attacked all the time, their colleagues are jealous, and I'm just being, you know, people want to take me down. And at the time, I believed him. I thought he was being unfairly maligned, but that was the beginning of finding out the truth.
The reality is, if he can con you, the person that he's proposing marriage to, you can con people who are scientific colleagues. And you think it's sort of immune spot, but he conned doctors, professors. You know, he had faulty academic credentials.
Yeah.
How did he get away with all of this fraud for so long? I mean, as a surgeon, I can't imagine letting this person come into my operating room and do things, traumatic things to people without somehow figuring out that he was a fraud. But I'm sure it could have happened to me too.
You know, it's like that movie, Catch Me If You Can. These con men are really good. They walk into a room, he has an air of confidence and arrogance about him, right? He just has this whole thing about him. And so if you walk into a place and you look like you belong there and you have the credentials, people tend to believe you. And I think with successful people, we kind of suspend our doubts. We give these people a break because we look at them and we think, even if we have a doubt, we think, that makes no sense, right? This person would never lie to me. So that's part of it. The second hugely important part of it, it's embarrassing to admit you got conned. It was embarrassing for me to admit I got conned. So now you have prestigious institutions, doctors, scientists, people who have worked with him, collaborated with him, operated with him, financed him maybe. They don't want to admit they got conned. And so what happens is they don't say anything. And so there's this culture of silence. And the culture of silence allows us to continue because nobody wants to fess up and say, you know what, I got fooled. And therefore, it allows him to continue.
It's like the emperor's not wearing clothes. Everyone says it's okay. So you say, well, if Benita thought it was okay, I mean, who am I to question this guy?
Exactly.
All right, up next, we take a closer look at the surgery Dr. Macchiarini performed that killed most of the patients. I'll say it again. He killed most of the patients he operated on, and it finally landed him in serious legal trouble.